The Key to Excellent Speaking by A.J. Hogue. What is the most important English skill? What skill must you have to communicate well? Obviously, number one is fluency. What is fluency? Fluency is the ability to speak and understand English quickly and easily without translation. Fluency means you can talk easily with native speakers. They easily understand you, and you easily understand them. In fact, you speak and understand instantly. Fluency is your most important English goal. The research is clear. There's only one way to get fluency. You do not get fluency by reading textbooks. You do not get fluency by going to English schools. You do not get fluency by studying grammar rules. Listening is the key. To get English fluency, you must have a lot of understandable, repetitive listening. That is the only way. To be a fantastic English speaker, you must learn English with your ears, not with your eyes. In other words, you must listen. Your ears are the key to excellent speaking. What kind of listening is best? Well, it must be understandable and must be repetitive. Both of those words are important, understandable and repetitive. If you don't understand, you learn nothing. You will not improve. That's why listening to English TV does not help you. You don't understand most of it. It is too difficult. It is too fast. It's obvious, right? If you do not understand, you will not improve. So, the best listening material is easy. That's right. You should listen mostly to easy English. Most students listen to English that is much too difficult. They don't understand enough, and so they learn slowly. Listen to easier English, and your speaking will improve faster. Understanding is only half the formula. Understanding is not enough. You must also have a lot of repetition. If you hear a new word only once, you will soon forget it. If you hear it 5 times, you will still probably forget it. You must hear new words and new grammar many times before you will understand them instantly. How many times is necessary? Most people must hear a new word 30 times to remember it forever. To know a word and instantly understand it, you probably need to hear it 50 to 100 times. That's why I tell my students to listen to all of my lessons many times. I tell them to listen to the mini stories, the vocab lessons, the point of view stories, and the audio articles every day. I recommend that they listen to each lesson a total of 30 times. For example, 2 times a day for 2 weeks. So, the 2 most important points are: listen to easier English and listen to each thing many times. Suggestions for powerful listening and excellent speaking. Number 1, practice narrow listening. Narrow listening means listening to many things about the same topic. This method is more powerful than trying to listen to many different kinds of things. Students who listen to similar things learn faster and speak better than students who listen to different kinds of things. For example, you can choose one speaker and find many things by him. Listen to all of his podcasts, audiobooks, and speeches. This is powerful because all speakers have favorite vocabulary and grammar. They naturally repeat these many times. By listening to many things by the same person, you automatically get a lot of vocabulary repetition. You learn faster and deeper. Another example is to choose one topic to focus on. For example, you could read an easy book, listen to the same audiobook, listen to a podcast about the book, and watch the movie. I did this with my class in San Francisco. We read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Then we listened to the audiobook. Then we watched and listened to the movie. Then we listened to interviews with actors in the movie. My students learned a lot of vocabulary in a short time, and their speaking improved very quickly. Number 2, divide your listening time. Which is better, to listen for 2 hours without a break, or to divide that time during the day? Well, dividing your listening time is best. By dividing your time throughout the day, you remember more and learn faster. So, it's much better to listen 30 minutes in the morning, then 30 minutes in the car or train, then 30 minutes coming home from work, then 30 minutes before sleep. In fact, that is the exact schedule I recommend to my students. Number 3, use an iPod or MP3 player. iPods are fantastic. You can put a big listening library on one. Then, you can carry your English lessons everywhere. You can learn English while walking, while shopping, in the car, in a train, while cooking. With an iPod or MP3 player, you don't have to worry about CDs. Also, you can find a lot of English listening on the internet. You can find lessons, stories, podcasts, TV shows, interviews, and audiobooks. Simply download the audio, put it on your iPod, and learn English anywhere. Number 4, listen to movies. Movies are great for learning English, but you must use them correctly. Don't watch all of an English movie. You will not understand it, and therefore you will not learn anything. Only watch one scene or segment per week, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Follow this method. A. First, watch the scene with subtitles in your language. This will help you understand the general meaning. B. Second, watch the scene with English subtitles. Pause. Use a dictionary to find new words you don't understand. Write the new sentences in a notebook. C. Listen to the scene many times with English subtitles. Do not pause. D. Listen to the scene a few times without subtitles. E. Repeat A through D every day for 1 week. On the second week, go to the next scene or segment and repeat again. It will take you a long time to finish a movie. That's okay, because you will improve your listening and speaking very fast. This method is powerful. Use it. Number 5, read and listen at the same time. Listening and reading together are very powerful. While you listen to something, also read it. This will improve your pronunciation. Reading while listening also helps you understand more difficult material. Read and listen to learn faster. After you do this a few times, put away the text and just listen. You will understand a lot more and you will improve faster. Always try to find both audio and text materials. To start, you can read my blog and listen to my podcast at text www.effortlessenglishclub.blogspot.com and audio www.effortlessenglish.libsyn.com. Another great idea is to get both a book and its audiobook. For example, the above example of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. 6 months to excellent English speaking. Follow the above suggestions and the 7 rules in my email course, and you will speak excellent English. I have been teaching over 10 years. Every student who follows these methods succeeds. Always. The Effortless English method is the key to speaking excellent English. It is the key to fluency. You only need 6 months. 6 months and you will speak easily to native speakers. 6 months and you will speak quickly and naturally. 6 months and you feel relaxed when you speak English. You have tried the old ways. You tried textbooks. You tried schools. You tried grammar study. It is time to try something new. Good luck. I wish you success with your English learning. A.J. Hogue, Director, Effortless English. Learning Languages Like Children by Dr. J. Marvin Brown. In 1984, the American University Language Center in Bangkok started using a new approach to teach the Thai language. The method is called the listening approach. In more recent years, it's become known as automatic language growth. The method says that any attempt to speak or even think about language before automatic speaking comes will cause damage and limit final results. In other words, the method uses a very long silent period. During the silent period, students focus only on listening. After 6 to 12 months of intensive listening, students begin to speak spontaneously and naturally, without effort and without thinking. Number 1, the child's secret. Everyone knows that when people move to a new country, the children will eventually speak the language natively, and the adults won't. The normal explanation is that children have a special talent that they lose as they grow up. Teachers said that for adults, languages should be taught and studied instead of learned naturally. But are we any better with present language teaching? Why, for example, do adults in Central Africa do better when they move to a new language community than our modern students do? Could it be that early teachers were mistaken? Maybe adults can do what children do. Maybe it's just adult behavior, not lack of talent, that prevents them from succeeding. The mistake. Children can do something that adults cannot. The unasked question. What would happen if an adult were to just listen for a year without speaking? Our answer. Both adults and children can do it right, but only adults can do it wrong. Imagine a 4-year-old child and an adult reacting to somebody talking to them in a foreign language. The child most often just listens. while the adult usually tries to talk back. Now imagine that not trying to speak was the child's secret. It makes sense that listening to things that are always right would build the language right, while saying things that are always wrong would build it wrong. What would happen if adults were to do the same thing children do? That is, just listen for a year without trying to say anything. In 1984, the AUA Language Center in Bangkok started doing exactly this in its Thai classes. The students just listened for as much as a year without speaking at all. We found that adults get almost the same results that children do. If adults understand natural talk in real situations without trying to say anything for a whole year, then fluent speaking with clear pronunciation will come automatically. It seems that the difference between adults and children is not that adults have lost the ability to do it right, but that children haven't yet gained the ability to do it wrong. That is, to destroy it with forced speaking. Forced speaking damages adults. Consciously thinking of one's sentences with translations, rules, substitutions, or any other kind of thinking prevents you from speaking like a native. Natural speaking, speaking that comes automatically, won't cause damage, not even when it's wrong. The damage doesn't come from being wrong. It comes from thinking about the language. What we're suggesting is this: the reason that children always end up as native speakers is because they learn to speak by listening. And the reason that adults don't is because they learn to speak by speaking. Adults talk too much. The formula is this: listen, don't speak, and be patient. And now it appears that this is not only the child's secret, it's everybody's secret. And while children do it more faithfully, adults can do it faster. Number 2, how ALG, automatic language growth, works. Most language teachers are constantly telling their students to try to speak as much as they can, and to think carefully before they say anything, so they'll get it right. And now I'm saying that this kind of speaking and thinking is the exact thing that prevents adults from learning languages well. Number 3, putting ALG, automatic language growth, in the classroom. We look at children who have moved to a new country, and we see them listen, laugh, and stare. The child's secret: ears open, mouths shut, no tests. They become near native within 2 years. Then we look into language classrooms around the world, and we see just the opposite. Ears practically closed. The students use their eyes instead. Mouths open, and a lot of tests. Very few of these students become near native. 2 things are needed for modern students. First, they need experiences in the language that are so interesting, fun, exciting, suspenseful, etc., that the students forget that a new language is being used. And second, the student's understanding must be high enough to learn, and this means 80 to 100% from the very first day. It takes a lot of work to train teachers to be both interesting and understandable. But it is the secret to success. Interesting and understandable listening and a long silent period is the key to speaking like a native. English trauma. There I was, in an English class in Japan. The Japanese teacher was standing in front of a class of middle school students. The students were young and eager. I sat to the side, watching. The teacher wrote an English sentence on the blackboard. John is taller than Mary. Then she began to talk in Japanese. As she talked, she circled different words of the sentence. She circled the word John with blue chalk. She talked and talked and talked in Japanese as she pointed to the word John. The students opened their notebooks and began writing. The teacher also began writing more on the board, in Japanese. Long sentences in Japanese. Then she pointed to the word John again. I couldn't understand Japanese, and I wondered, what is she talking about? How can she talk so much about just one word? It's just a name. Finally, the teacher circled the word Mary. Then she started talking again in Japanese. She pointed to the word. She wrote long notes in Japanese. The students wrote and wrote and wrote in their notebooks. They looked serious and a little confused. The teacher continued talking, always in Japanese. Finally, after almost 10 minutes, she finished explaining the word Mary in Japanese. The students were now looking stressed and tired. The teacher underlined the word is next, using white chalk. Then she did it again, talking, 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 and talking in Japanese. Writing, 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 and writing in Japanese. This continued for the entire class. She eventually circled taller and than with green chalk and talked for over 20 minutes about these two words. By the end of the class, the young students were tired, stressed, and totally confused. In 50 minutes, they had heard only one sentence in English, repeated only one time. In that same time, they had heard the teacher speak Japanese for nearly 49 minutes. I couldn't believe it. However, the sad truth is that this was a typical English class. Every day, the students listened to their teacher explain sentences in Japanese. After 3 years of English classes, none of the students could speak even simple English. All of the students hated English. The classes were stressful. The tests were complicated. Every day they analyzed very complex grammar rules. Every day they memorized long lists of English words. Unfortunately, many English students in many different countries have had similar experiences. Because they learned English this way, they believe English is difficult and complicated. They have no confidence with English. They feel stress every time they hear or try to speak English. One student called this feeling English trauma. The causes of English trauma. What causes English trauma? Why do so many students feel nervous when they try to speak English? Why do so many students have trouble speaking English? It's not the student's fault. English trauma is caused by schools, not students. Specifically, English trauma is caused by specific teaching methods. These methods confuse students and create stress. These methods damage students' ability to speak well. These methods are ineffective. They are failures. Trauma cause 1. Analyze and memorize. Traditional English teaching focuses on analyzing English grammar and memorizing English words. In the typical class, students spend most of their time listening to explanations in their own language, not in English. During almost every class, the teacher focuses on grammar points, complicated rules about the structure of English. These rules are very difficult to use and remember. In fact, during a normal conversation, at normal speed, these rules are impossible to remember and use correctly. It simply takes too much time to remember all of these rules while listening and speaking at full speed. Thus, students learn to pass grammar tests. They sometimes learn to read and write well, but they rarely learn to speak easily and quickly. Likewise, a lot of time is spent memorizing English words. Typically, students must memorize long lists of vocabulary and translations. Students learn to efficiently memorize many words for a test. After the tests, they forget most of them. The result? Students who do very well on grammar and vocabulary tests, but cannot understand normal English speech and cannot speak easily and quickly. Because of this, most English students feel very nervous about speaking. They have no confidence. They feel more comfortable taking a test than having a real conversation. Trauma cause 2. Speak, damn it! Traditional teaching methods focus on output. What does this mean? It means that most schools want students to immediately produce English. In other words, they force students to write, to take tests, and sometimes to speak. For example, in that Japanese class, the teacher sometimes put the students in small groups. She then told them, in Japanese, practice using comparatives. Each student say a sentence in English, comparing two other students. The students always looked confused and nervous during these activities. This kind of speaking is unnatural. It is stressful. Of course, we all want to speak English. The problem: traditional classes force students to speak too soon, before they are ready. Also, they force students to speak in totally unnatural ways. Language research shows that understandable input is the key to speaking well. In other words, you need to listen to a lot of natural English before you can speak easily and quickly. The more you listen, the better you eventually speak. There's also an emotional problem. When teachers force students to speak when they are not ready, students become very nervous. This feeling is repeated and strengthened again and again. Eventually, the student feels stress every time they try to speak English. In other words, they get English trauma. Trauma cause 3. You're stupid! Traditional English teachers love to correct errors. You take a test, and the teacher identifies your errors. You try to speak, and immediately your errors are identified and corrected. In many classes, students are forced to speak while the whole class listens. Of course, this makes the student feel very nervous. However, it gets even worse. As the student speaks, the teacher will sometimes identify their errors and correct them while the whole class listens. Of course, this feels terrible. It's embarrassing. It's super stressful. It makes the student feel stupid. And it doesn't work. Research shows that error correction has no effect on accuracy. That's right, absolutely no effect. For example, we divide a class into 2 groups. In group 1, the teacher constantly corrects every error the students make. In group 2, the teacher never corrects errors. At the end of 1 year, we test both groups of students. The result, every time, there is no difference in accuracy, no difference in the number of errors that students in each group make. Error correction seems logical, but the truth is, it is totally ineffective. In fact, error correction is worse than ineffective. It actually damages the students. There is another result we find when we compare Group 1 and Group 2. They both still make the same number of errors, but Group 1 speaks more slowly. In other words, error correction kills fast speech. Error correction causes students to think about English. Error correction causes students to always analyze and translate before they speak. These students cannot speak English easily and quickly. Bored, stressed, and confused. Here is the result of traditional English teaching. A student who is bored, who thinks that English is boring. A student who is stressed, who feels nervous every time they try to speak English. A student who is confused, who thinks that English is very difficult and complicated. A student who has good test scores, but cannot understand or speak well. And usually, a student who quits, who believes they cannot and will not ever speak English well. A student who thinks, I'm not good at English. In other words, a student with English trauma. Practice your English listening by listening to the audio version of this report. Download it at www.effortlessenglishclub.com/trauma.html.